How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Had your breakfast?
Yeah, I had.
Okay. Okay, fine. Cool, then we can start the discussion.
Sure.
Yeah, Manjit. So before going into the discussion, can you just brief me about your overall experience and the tech stack that you have?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. My name is Amarjit. I'm having 7+ years of experience. Currently, I'm working with the different technology based on the Java. So the technology which I worked on Java with the Spring Boot microservices, Spring Cloud component as a backend, front end some of the exposures as a Angular. Also, I have a good experience in AWS cloud services. So most of the services I used in AWS. Coming for the database and DevOps. So some of the DevOps tools I use while we used for the development of microservices like Apache, Maven, Jenkins, Jira, GitHub, ELK, Splunk, and all. And database which I used like Mongo and Oracle. So these all are the tech stack which I am working. And domain perspectives, I have a good experience in different domain like banking, telecom, e-commerce, health insurance projects and all. So there we worked on different project and role and responsibility like to develop microservices to give the functionality from one REST API to another REST API and all. And apart from this, like while we develop any applications, so that we need to deploy the in the different environment. So once it will go for the production environment, then we need to take in care all the changes like all the configurations as proper or not, what are the changes we are doing. So loggers, security, validations are enabled or not, what are the property required is proper for the production environment. Once that will be completed, then we have to available on call so that our deployment will go for a smooth scenario. So like that, this type of things we are working on that.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So which version of Java currently you are
Yeah,
using?
so mostly I use Java is a Java 8 7. It's, Java 7 and Java 8 I work.
Okay. So Java 8, any Java 8 features have you used?
In Java 8 we have a multiple features are there like Stream API, Lambda functions, Lambda expressions, functional interface, datetime API, and others is uh, we have a predicate consumer functions and all. So this type of things I used mostly on daily basis.
Okay. So, okay. So what is the functional interface and what is the use of functional interfaces?
Functional interface is used like suppose if you have created as an interface is annotated with at the rate functional interface, that is a single abstract method will be applicable. So inside this method only one abstract method will be there that we can use. Apart from this, we have a multiple default method and static we can use, that is called functional interface. So we have Java already, we have some of the functional interfaces there like clonable and all.
Okay. So what is the difference between the collections and streams?
Collections is a framework and a stream is used for the Java while we need to process the data. So we can use the stream API that need to be processed. So while we are processing the data, so inside that we have a multiple a stream like inside the stream we can use the filters map, flat map and all, so that our data will be processed and execute faster man. But collection is a framework where we have a multiples list set and in uh, map will be there, so that interface.
Okay. So what is immutability in Java?
Immutability means like we can't change this once you define this, then we cannot change. So in Java already we have a string class is there, so that the string is a immutable class. So while you created a string, you cannot modify it. So how we can create a custom immutable class? Create a class as a final, inside that we'll have a only getter method There is no setter method will be there, and the variables and all will be this public ticket find.
Mhm. So fine. So what are the uses of immutable classes? Why do we need immutable classes?
Yeah, so depends on the
Any
requirement.
case or any
Suppose,
scenario where
yeah, so mostly we use there are multiple scenario is there, but while you have a repetition task like a database connectivity is there, so we have a multiple microservices or maybe multiple services are there we need to execute database connectivity. So while you need to database connectivity, you need to pass the database parameter like user id, passwords and all. So some of the cases will have a common user id and password, so you can create a string for that, and then the same string you can pass it to everywhere. So that will be the fixed type of characters, array of characters will be there that we can use.
okay. Have you ever seen the concurrent modification exception?
Yeah, that modification exceptions like multiple thread will be executed simultaneously in that time, that concurrent modification exceptions will occur. Like if we have a asynchronous communication and synchronous. So while synchronous communication at a time only one single thread will be executed, but concurrent modifications will allow you to multiple asynchronous communications will happen, so that they will allow the parallel streams will be created, and that will be executed. In that cases, if any any of the thread will have any occurrence of errors or something will happen, in that cases we will throw the concurrent modification action, because we will divide it in the sub task, and then that will be distributed for the parallel.
Okay. Okay. So let's say I have a sorry. Let's say I have a scenario like I have 10 employee objects.
Yeah.
Okay. And the employee object has employee name, employee ID, and date of joining.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I wanted to store all these employee objects uh, in a collection. I wanted to hold in a collection and send it into some other API.
Okay.
But while sending to the API, I wanted to make sure all these objects should be in a sorted order based on a date of joining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for that cases
Okay,
what we
then
will
how
do,
do we?
yeah, we have a in Java we have a comparable and comparator is there, that is used for the sorting purpose. So if you want a
Mhm.
natural sorting, that will be the comparator, and then comparable, and if you want customized sorting, because you want based on the date of joining, in that cases we need to implement the comparator interface in that particular entity class, and after that we will have a to write this logic of based on the date of joining, we need to compare the data, and then that will be either ascending or descending order, so that a1 or a2 is greater than a1 minus a2, like that. Because we have a comparator will have a, if you go for
Okay.
internal implementation, they have written two method, the two attribute will be compare, and then you have to produce the data based on ascending and descending order.
Okay. So in Java, if we wanted to do something synchronously and asynchronously,
Yeah.
how we can do that?
Yeah, in Java, if you want to synchronize asynchronous, then we have a synchronized method is there. We have a synchronized block is there, so that you can use in the method level as a synchronized keyword or block level. So that classes will be denoted as a synchronous. A single thread will be applicable for that. Others will be waiting conditions. Once the thread will be released the lock, then others will be notified, and then we'll start this. But if you want asynchronous,
Okay, that
so
is fine. So that is
Yeah.
That is synchronous. Okay. I'm asking something different. Okay. Let's say I wanted to execute a method.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, hi. I think there was some network issue happen, so that disconnected.
Okay. Did you get that question or do you want me to repeat it?
Can you repeat once again?
Okay. See, I wanted to um, implement some program
Mm-hmm.
where any yes, I wanted to write a method, a couple of method one
Okay.
and method two.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to execute method one synchronously and execute method two asynchronously.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
asynchronously. Yes. So in that case, normally how do we do this synchronous asynchronous mechanism? The process of synchronous asynchronous processing, how we can achieve?
Yeah, so for that we can achieve by using Java 8. So that Java 8 already we have a parallel stream API. So that parallel
Mhm.
stream, while we have process the data, then we can go for the either synchronous block or method. So that data will be come through the synchronous way. So by using block or method. After that, while we process, then that result or while processing in that time we need a asynchronous. So that asynchronous we need to create a parallel stream, so that we have to use the stream API, and then parallel streams will be allocated with multiple sequence of the thread, and then the same block it will be executed, and it will be transferred like that.
Okay. Okay, that is fine. So what are all the design patterns you have
Mostly
used so
design
far?
patterns I used like a singleton, DAO, builders, factory, and saga, and yeah. So gang of four
Okay.
is there. So mostly I use for these all as per the requirement, and MBC patterns.
Hmm. Okay. So what is a builder pattern and why do we use builder pattern?
Builders patterns, like if you have like if while you are writing any test cases, mostly I use in the test cases for the builders. So these all are the like common. Suppose you have a common data which need to be executed in simultaneously with the multiples method. So you need to create a one builder. So there we have a predefined all those things you have to declare, and the same repetition of method which need to be executed to done the test cases or something. In that cases we have to call the particular this method. So no need to do the repetition of the task by using builders. So these all are the
Okay.
we use for the creation of objects and all.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Um, you worked on Spring Boot, REST services,
Yeah.
microservice as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, so what is the use of microservice and why do we need microservices?
Microservices is just a way of architecture. Like while we need to implement any business logic, so we need to divide in the different component. It's called a microservices. Like while you have a banking application that was a monolithic, so in a single applications we need to deploy all those things. So while we develop, then all the microservices we need to stop. So our business will be impacted. Right now we have a microservice is nothing but what are the modules are there, like you have a in banking applications you have a dashboard, transactions, request, and others, service now, and others are there, multiples are there. So for that they have divided in the multiple component as a microservices. So suppose a particular microservices need changes or some deployment will is required, then you have to stop the particular microservices, so all respective microservices will work. So our customer impacted will not be affected, and remaining service will work, so that business will not be down. So there are multiple features are there in microservices, or disadvantage also there. So features is like simultaneously we can develop all the module, easily we can deploy the application, easily we can track the applications, because then these are not a huge amount of applications, so easily we can track the applications deployed, develop applications like that.
Okay. Have you worked on yeah, my multi-threading environments?
Multi-threading, yeah, some of the business requirement I worked on banking.
Okay. So what are the so
Sorry,
what are
which
the
one?
common issues? What are the common issues that we have we are going to face while working with multi-threaded environments or multi-threading programming?
Yeah, mostly which we use like a common issue we seen like deadlock situations, and then thread blocking, and thread blockings we seen, deadlock situations, and others is multiple thread while executed, then sometime not executed properly, or maybe data is not coming proper as per the requirement. So that type of things we seen. So maybe uh, uh, like our synchronized asynchronous block is not communicating properly. uh,
Okay. How hash map internally works?
hash map internally work like if you have created hash map, then there will be some size will be allocated. So the hash map size is starting from 0 to 15 is called 16 size. So inside there, that they once you are putting that value, then that will be stored based on the key and value. So the key and value will be compare either equals and hash code method. So how this equals method will check, like suppose some of the cases will have a same key and different value you have inserted in that. So maybe the situations will happen like same hash code will be generated. So in that cases we need to check dot equals, so that dot equals will check the content. So either if hash code is generated for the same is like dot equals like content is same or different. If same, then that will be allocated in the same index, or is different, then in the same key of address next index will be allocated like that. So that linked list will be performed in the node basis.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So in Spring Boot, how do we handle exceptions?
Yeah, as Spring Boot we can handle exception is a exception a handler, in a exception handler or a controller advice. So through this controller exception advice. So here like what we need to do, like all the common exceptions we can create in a particular class, like 400 500 is a common which will become in all applications, or maybe custom exception which you have created some custom exception that need to be handled through the common exception. So create a controller advice exception handler where all the exceptions will be denoted, and whatever the method is required to handle the exception that need to be called through the this advice class.
Okay. So, what is the use of qualifier annotation?
Qualifier annotation is used to call, like if you have multiple methods are there, bean, multiple bean is allocated, and maybe some of the cases same bean name or bean type will be there. So what qualifier will be like uh, define this method is the same, but this is required for this type by name, and this is required for this type by name or by salary or by department and all. So qualifier denote like whatever the confusion or same type of method will be there that need to be declared what type of require is there, so that qualifier annotations will be annotated.
Okay. How do we configure multiple databases using Spring Boot, and how do we use those multiple databases?
Multiple database is used in microservices base. So we have like Apache like property application.yaml file. So in a Spring Boot application.yaml, there we have to declare all the database source, like either SQL, Mongo, Oracle and all. After that, what we need to do, we need to create a database config.java file. So that database config.java file will be configure at the rate configuration annotation, and there need to be added like what will be the resource, what are the driver, jar and database username and password. That variables we need to declare, and then we have to call from the property. And once we have the call from the property, then while we need to communicate with the resource file or repository file, there we need to auto wire this data config .java file. So once you have
Okay.
called this particular connector .java file, the data will be behave like that one only, either maybe SQL, NoSQL or Mongo, NoSQL, Mongo or
So
any
that
other.
is okay. That is fine. But when we are going to do any operations in the database, how do we use the specific database in our repository?
Can you repeat once again?
So in this case, multiple databases we configured, right? So
Yeah.
how do we use whenever if we are trying to perform any insert operation, update operation, how
Mhm.
do you make sure this operation should be done only on Oracle database or
Yeah. So for
another
all the
database?
database, you have created the config class, like Mongo config.java file, Oracle config.java file, like that. We have a multiple config class we have created. So while we need to
Mhm.
create a repository class, in that you have to auto wire whatever the database you need, and after that whatever the you auto wire for the reference, you need to call the business law, right, like query parameters or query details. So that will be called only,
Okay.
because you need to auto wire the
Okay.
configuration
If I
class,
wanted to do,
and after the configuration class will
hmm,
have a reference file. So the reference file through that you need to auto wire.
okay, okay, that's fine. Have you ever used JPA?
Yeah, JPA we used.
Okay. Tell me what are all the classes that we are going to specific class names. I'm expecting class names, specific class names we are going to use when to perform any query execution or updation in a
JPA will have a
database.
multiple methods are there, like find by ID, find all, delete, and
Okay, not specifically JPA. Okay. If we
and
use JPA,
mhm,
okay, if we use JPA and you have
mhm,
multiple databases, you have written a repository class.
mhm.
To that repository class, how do you say For this repository, only
Mm-hmm.
this database can be used. How do you say, how do you annotate, or how do you mention somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
You got my question?
Yeah, I got. So in JPA we have a like a uh, SQL Mongo related connectors are there that need to be added in the dependency. Pom.xml we have to add that dependency, and after that in the resource file like a repository interface we need to extend this Mongo template or SQL template, I think. पूजा पूजा कथी कहे फोन करे बार बार ई सब नीचा से फोन करे नेटवर्क कट जाए बार बार की करिए हम समझे नहीं आवे कसम कथी लेल फोन करे है सब नीचा से भाभी पूजा सब कथी लेल फोन करे तो तैयार होते सब तब न हेते बर के फिर Hello, are you able to hear me? Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay, so what? So Spring Boot, if you can say Spring Boot, right? So what is the use of Spring Boot and what are the advantages of Spring Boot over Spring?
Yeah, Spring is a framework. A Spring Boot is a technology where we can use a Spring framework. Inside a Spring, mostly a Spring Boot is used for multiple features are there. A Spring IO is there and a Spring initializer. Through that we can create a dummy project, and then we have as at the rate a Spring Boot application annotation. So multiple annotations has been introduced in Spring Boot. So instead of all the configurations to do manually in a Spring framework, directly we can use at the rate a Spring Boot application annotation. So that will be taken care of all the configuration classes and all the component scan enable auto configurations will be automatically. Apart from this we have a while we created a bean and all, so for that we have a auto wire and all. So through that we can call from one class to other classes and all by using auto wire. Apart from this we have a multiple annotations, easily we can handle the exceptions, and then by using run the applications we can create a jar or by using command line runner also. And we have some of multiples dependency which added in the form, some DevOps dev tools and as swaggers and all. So through that we can create a jar automatically, and Swaggers will be check the all the endpoint and what are the respective use input and output parameters will be there, and actuators will be there, so that we have a health metrics and all, which will be denoted and find this detail. So like that we have a multiple features, you know.
Okay. Okay. So when we use Spring Boot,
Mm-hmm.
we have to use, as you said, there is a at the rate Spring Boot application annotation, right?
Yeah.
Is it mandatory to use this at the rate Spring Boot application annotation?
Not it. If you are using, you can use, but not a mandatory. Instead of that, you can also use separate annotations like at the rate configurations, at the rate enable auto configurations, and at the rate component scan, because it's a combination of three annotation in a Spring Boot. If you want, you can use, else not an issue.
Okay. 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 That's fine. So you worked on REST web services?
Rest, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So what is the difference between a request parameter and path variable?
Request parameters, which will be which happen through the question mark, so where in this you have to mention that, and path variable is what are the parameters will be defined on at the time of declaration in the URI, then the application's result will be behave like that. Suppose if employee ID is a 10, then your data will come like a which who all have a employee ID is a 10, that details will come in the response. But request param which will be on dynamic, once the users will enter the data on this, so that will be behave as a question mark, where users will enter the details as dynamic, then only the result will come.
Okay. Okay. So since you have worked on microservices also, so have you ever seen circuit breaker pattern implementation?
Yeah, circuit breaker is a cloud component, Spring Cloud component, where we can use if we have a multiple microservices, and I already told like some of the microservices need to be deployment going on or something happen, so we need to stop the microservices. So maybe some of other microservices which will be have a dependency from this microservice. So how this microservice other microservice will know like this microservice is down due to deployment. So we have a circuit breaker, so that circuit breaker will be enable auto circuit breaker, enable histories, and after that we'll have a method. So whatever the method which will be denoted with the particular microservices, there we have a fallback mechanism we have to mention. If this method is not working for the particular time, then what need to be sent to the customer or maybe client, so that applications will behave like our application is down, please try after sometimes, like that. So that type of things will be denoted in circuit breaker. So we have multiple methods are there in circuit breakers.
Okay. Hmm. So let's say I have a requirement like I'm getting an employee registration details. Okay. So this is a simple REST web service, REST application. I have a REST service implemented to process an employee details,
Mm-hmm.
but the employee details I'm getting from a user interface. Okay, but I
Mm-hmm.
have different user interfaces. I have mobile application and UI, desktop UI.
Mm-hmm.
There is some other client also. So, but the request data I'm getting is an employee details, but in different formats. In the sense, sometimes I'm getting in XML format.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm getting the employee details as a JSON.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in another format, I'm getting employee details in different formats.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I'm getting the same details for employee.
Mhm.
But my service to handle all those types of data and to process the employee object
Mhm.
without any problem. For this use case, how do we implement our service? What are the approaches you have to
So
use
yeah,
follow?
so in the REST template we have a like a REST template we have a like a producer and consumer, so that application type either XML or JSON or text or image, whatever you want, that you can mention there. Else, if you mention as a JSON, so that will be applicable for everywhere. So like application type as a producer or consumer, we can mention as a JSON. So JSON will be applicable.
Yeah. So that is fine. That will tell you
Yeah, so this is the one way,
at the
and others
service
way,
side, this method can accept only that type of method.
yeah, others way we can accept
That
all
will
type
tell
of
you which
method.
type of method we can accept.
Mhm.
Mm. But what
Others,
my intention
yeah,
is, we
yeah,
have
others way.
different types of messages.
Hmm.
How do we handle all those types for the processing?
Okay, yeah. So what we have to do, we have a mappers. So that
Hmm.
mappers we will create like whatever the data is coming, like we have to check either data is XML or JSON or maybe others. So once the data we will find it, the type of data, then we need to check the mappers. If the data is based on XML, then we have to call the XML mappers. XML mapper will be converted the raw data to the like XML data to the raw of either JSON, because we need to produce the data only in JSON format, or maybe client want in the whatever the format, we need to map this through the mappers. So we need to create all the mappers: XML, text, image, JSON, and all.
Okay. So that's fine. So here in this case, there are some processing overhead because let's say if I am getting some different type of format. Let's say my
Mm-hmm.
application expecting three types for now, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some other format has came up or something else, some wrong format came up. So in this case, I don't want the request should come to the service
Mm-hmm.
controller at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If the message format is wrong, if you wanted to achieve this, how do we can do that? So let's say you are saying mapper, right? Okay, even the mapper is nothing but a processing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Server processing. The request came to the mapper itself.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say I'm getting hundreds of requests
Mm-hmm.
coming to mapper. If the mapper is if the format is different, then failing. That is the overhead for the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of coming to this mapper itself, we have to restrict unexpected formats. If the format expected format came, then only send for further processing, even to the mapper or controller, whatever it may be. Otherwise, we have to restrict the service in the initial stage. So, to achieve this type of restriction,
Yeah,
what
that
are all
also
the
be possible.
components or things we can do?
Yeah, on the
Hmm.
service level only
How
we
do
will
we do that?
restrict that. Service level
So,
or.
service level in the sense the request came to the service, right?
Mhm. I'm not sure, but we can restrict that also. Different depends on the layer, maybe controller also, service also, or maybe while we are processing through the database. But better we can go for the controller level restriction.
User is wrong, then we don't want to forward it further, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah. So user is wrong.
Yeah. So if you can say authentication, if you give wrong password and username,
Mm.
it won't process you further. Even it should not go anything else.
Correct.
So in the same way, that is nothing but initial verification. In the same way,
Mm-hmm.
we have to do the initial verification or validation somehow to
Mm-hmm.
check the format is correct, then go for further processing. Otherwise, we should stop there at the initial stage, is what I'm asking.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever heard about filters?
Which one?
Filters,
Yeah, yeah, filters.
interceptors. Have you ever
Yes,
used them?
I heard, but I haven't used. But I heard filters and all. Filters will be checked for the pre and
Uh-huh. Okay.
post call.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So how about writing SQL queries? Are you comfortable writing SQL queries?
Yeah, SQL, Mongo. Yeah, SQL mostly I use. Oracle, SQL.
Okay, let's say I have an employee object, I have an employee table.
Okay.
Okay. Wait a minute, Amrit.
Yeah, yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. So I have an employee object, I have an employee class, sorry, employee table. In that employee table, I wanted to get all the average salary of an employee uh, which belongs to admin department. Okay. So can you
Okay.
just tell me the query for that?
Like list of the employee department is there. Like select a star from employee. We can mention,
Mm.
and then where we have to provide the conditions.
Okay, that is fine. So I'm just telling, give me the clear select query. So table name is employee.
Mm-hmm.
I want employee average salary of each department of the employee table.
Okay, so select.
Okay, in that employee table, I have employee name, employee ID, employee department, and employee salary. These are the four columns I have. And table is the employee table. Then tell me the query to print department and the average salary.
Yeah, so we can mention like a group, select average salary from employee, where employee uh, uh, group by department,
Okay.
then all the average
Okay.
salary will be
That is
calculated.
so. One more. Hmm.